Well, actually, should be going to our Abuja studios to link up SMA or to join us on this conversation. As soon as we have that connection, we'll be on live with him. We're trying to look at how we can resolve this particular, problem between the executive and the legislative arm. What do you think can be done to move ahead and stay off this particular logjam?
Well, I think there could be a political solution to it. That political solution, and I wish it will happen that way, is for us to eventually disregard this constitutional amendment. Because you see, my opinion is that it does not have a lot to offer to the people. And I'm doing so because I'm comparing it alongside the constitutional review, which came from the National Confab last year. The National Confab's version of constitutional review was very, very holistic. It came with about 600 and something, recommendations, which Nigerians were quite excited at, and which Nigerians participated in. And when you compare it against the backdrop of what the National Assembly said they did, in which case they said they had done what they call referendum, that resulted in that gave us results that were even doubtful. Doubtful in the sense that the local governments ended up saying that they didn't want autonomy. That was the result of their own referendum, or at least their own of their own efforts. And they built all of these things into what is today being seen as constitutional amendment. When you compare it with what the National Confab gave us last year, they are miles apart.
So you're asking us to jettison even the amount of money and effort too.
Let's just welcome SMA, but he joins us via phone. Good morning, Honorable, and thanks for joining us. Apologies, we just couldn't set up the Skype to get to you this morning. Thanks for joining us all the same, and thanks for the patience.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning.
All right, okay. I'm quite sure you've been following the argument. You should have joined us long before now. We're trying to look at certain agenda for the incoming administration, as well as looking at the issue with the legislature and the National Assembly. Let's talk about the agenda first. We had Shino Byron, who was here with us. So we're trying to look at leadership and even so many other things that bothers on corruption. What would be your take on leadership for this new administration and the fight against corruption?
When you are talking about, I heard Byron when he was talking about the issue of the international practice and what the international community is trying to set up. But I think our client here is quite different, because the issue of leadership is not something we should discuss nitpickishly. Leadership is a very serious issue, and it borders on the issue of responsibility that must be accounted for. And any responsibility that is not accounted for, becomes an issue. Then in the heart of what we are talking about in terms of leadership, we must also begin to look at the issue of moral rearmament in our nation. Because once the election finishes, you'll be shocked that after the swearing in, people will be now starting another campaign again for second term without the issue of accountability. So we cannot begin to talk midway into it without going straight and looking at the fundamentals of leadership, which of course is accountability. And the issue of corruption, I have always said it, and I can restate it again. You don't fight corruption, because when you begin to talk about the issue of fighting corruption, you must break the rules, and you manage corruption. And the issue of managing corruption is not the issue of Buhari, and in all this, there has to be some kind of obligation on the citizen, and this obligation must born out from our knowledge of what we desire. So civic responsibility is a very key issue there. The issue of national consciousness is a very key issue there, because corruption, by the time you are looking at it, it is not a tree in an individual's compound. It is not a seed which is sold in a particular shop. This thing is all about us. So we must first and foremost embark on institutional integrity and individual integrity. We must do an audit, an individual integrity audit, to now be able to assess how much of it are we looking at. But a lot of people are now looking at corruption from public service segment. That, people should go to jail, people should do this. The judge who is presiding over criminal cases in the court, he needs to change his attitude. A criminal justice administration and the issue of enforcement. What about the institutions driving?
Let me pause you here a moment. Let me come in here. Make it more clearer for people. When you say you can't fight corruption, space it more on that.
Well, you can only manage corruption. You can't fight it. When you are talking about fighting corruption, are you hearing me?
Go ahead.
Yeah. When you are talking about fighting corruption, you need to bend the rules. You need to bend the rules. And corruption is like cancer, and because it is like cancer, you don't go ahead. When once you allow it to enter into you, once the cancer has access into your system, you now begin to manage it because you now know it's terminal. And the world over, even in Malaysia, you just in your news this morning when a young lady is caught and sentenced to death for drug trafficking. That does not stop, that aspect of corruption. You only manage it, and the way to manage corruption is not all about this institution and the law enforcement agencies. You also talk about the citizens' obligation in doing this, like the issue of artisanal reorientation. There must be a moral rearmament to be able to understand what we want as a people. The collective aspirations and urges of the people must be transformed into our national leadership. And once that is done, you now begin to talk about the management.
Okay, now do you see a case where there will be a clash of interest? Mr. Eke was talking about the political class not necessarily agreeing with what the populace wants.
Insofar as we still have the perception of the general perception we have today in this country is that when somebody is in government, is our time to chop. But we have not been able to differentiate between government as an institution and governance as a process. Governance as a process assists in every ramification to trigger that prosperity. That will be the end result of it will be the derivative, which of course is the intention of every democracy. You hear people talk about dividends of democracy. Dividends of democracy has never been the issue of construction of roads and building hospitals and all that. Dividends of democracy in its own are these constitutional guarantees which democracy, brings to the citizens. So the derivative, dividends of governance, are those issues you and I are expectant, as the end result of the process of election or the process of democracy at any given time. So now a lot of people are having very wrong perception. Now Buhari is coming in with his austere lifestyle, he's coming in with his personal integrity. The people around him, what is their attitude? What is their attitude to governance? What is their attitude to our national integrity? What is the attitude to our recovery plan? What is the attitude to our rebirth as a nation? Some of them are still having that mentality. You see people who defected from APC to PDP or from PDP to APC. All these people, what has been their attitude to governance? It's not the issue of defection. And the political parties by themselves, they have not taken any steps to educate the people on the issue of civic responsibility. So I think where we are now, Buhari will, in my own opinion, and I stand to be corrected, like he has just started the issue of perception management. Recently, I heard when he said that it's not his business, on who becomes the leader in who becomes the leader, in the house of either in the house or in the Senate. That the people have the right to choose whoever they want to choose. That is a very perfect perception management because people will not believe that. he is not delving into the issue of the leadership of that place, and that governance is going to be transparent.
Well, anyway, let's take a moment here. We'll come back. When we do come back, excuse me, we'll bring you and Judge Eke to look at the affairs of the National Assembly and the executive arm concerning the Constitution Amendment. That will be after now. Stay with us.